Welcome to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. I'm Brooke Mangum.
And I'm Kari Hawker Diaz. Okay, this one is a podcast that I needed, and I did this podcast, so I'm excited for everyone.
Self-help.
a little self-help. We're talking about finance tips, like personal finance, and I really struggle with this whole subject because I get nervous of like, ooh, what do my finances look like? And I've found that if I, like, my one tip for myself, I'm going to say this, I got to pay attention to my daily habits.
Yes.
Because when I'm going and I'm getting my daily cup of coffee, I'm getting like whatever it
adds
is,
up
like,
really fast.
It adds up. And you think it does. And you're like, it's just like one day.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself, right? And sometimes you need to. It's balanced. Sometimes you need to. But if you look at what you're spending per day, that really helps me like rein it in.
I started doing notifications on my credit card.
Smart.
And it really does help me, but it also is like, like you just realize over and over and over. And I actually had a funny moment at Target the other day where, all of your financial decisions are made. If you're a mom like me.
Yes.
But my daughter was asking for things over and over. Mom, I want this. Mom, I want this. And I said something that I now need to say to myself. I told her, I said, honey, we're not just going to buy things to buy things.
Ooh.
And I was like,
yes.
Ooh, that was more for me than it was for you.
That hits home.
It's so easy to just, like you said, see something and then you realize all of a sudden you've got this big credit card statement without even trying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I often will like shy away from wanting to look at my credit card statements, but like I learned this in therapy about other subjects, and this actually applies. It can't chase you if you look at it.
Okay, I like that.
It can't,
I like that. And we're getting advice from the real pros today,
Yes.
not just Kari and I going through our financial strife here.
Yes, from Altabank, and they are amazing. So should we just give it a listen?
Yes.
I am very excited for this episode today. I'm here with Judd Austin with Altabank. Thank you for talking with me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Appreciate you. Okay, Judd, let's dive right in. For someone who feels overwhelmed by budgeting, because it can be such like can I do this? Is this for me? Where should we start?
Yeah, it's easy to be overwhelmed by how do I go from maybe not managing my money to budgeting. And so the easy, simple answer is keep it simple. Look at what you've done the last 30 days. Go back. You have a history there, and that will kind of guide you to say, what categories am I spending in? Where can I make improvements? And then budget from there. But that review really makes it a simple way to say, hey, I can start here, and then you can set some goals around where you want to be.
I like that. So look at your last 30 days. What categories should we be looking at?
Yeah, as you go through there, there'll be some natural categories that fall into place. You'll see things like rent, housing expense.
I guess we have to pay those.
Yeah, we all need that. You'll have your car payment or your gas. But then there's the little things that start to add up beyond just the groceries. How often are we stopping for a drink or a coffee? And how often are we going out to eat?
Because that adds up.
They'll add up. Those little things do add up. And a lot of times that's the place people can start to say, oh, I can make an improvement here. I didn't realize I was spending $200 a month on coffee, and now we can make an improvement.
Sure. Should everyone be budgeting is my next question.
I believe everybody should budget.
Okay.
Yeah, even people who have budgeted a long time, I think it's good to look at where you're at today and try to improve off of it.
Yeah.
Maybe you've been doing something a really long time and there's a better way to do it. So is there an app that you could take advantage of that you could just categorize your spending on your mobile app for your bank, have it flow right in, and instead of having a big spreadsheet to keep track of all your expenses, you have a more simple way to do it, and
Sure.
maybe that helps you save better or whatever your goals might be.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone should be doing this. Okay. How can small changes actually lead to big results? Because you think like, oh, well, I'm going to cut out that, lattes now. If you're going getting coffee, it's $5, $6, $7 depending on the size. But if I'm going to cut out a $7 latte, is that really going to be helping?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it can feel like if I'm only cutting out a few dollars here and there, is it really going to add up? The answer is that yes, they do add up, and what you do with that money that you save is really important. It's being intentional with that money that matters. I think that's sometimes what we forget is the reason we budget is so that we can make our money work for us. So have a goal in mind of why do you care about cutting out some of those small expenses that could add up?
Yeah.
And then when you do that, put it to work. Are you trying to pay down debt? Are you trying to save for a vacation? You have a kid that's going to go to college and you're wanting to put some more money away from that. So decide, what do I want that money to do? And then when you save that, earmark it for that and put it in that account. So then you start to gain a little momentum because you see that adds up over time. And that's what's really fun to do when you start to reach some of your goals, to say, oh, I didn't think I could save a couple $100s a month. But when I'm saving here and there and I'm putting that money aside, maybe in a specific account for that goal,
Yeah.
Then you start to see progress, and then you feel good about, hey, I can do this.
That's a really good idea, a really good point. Because if you're just taking out your morning $7 latte on your way to work that brings you joy, yeah, sure. And if you're just saying, oh, I'm going to try to save money, like that's not going to make you feel any motivation to do it. But if you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm saving for a Disneyland trip for our family later this year, or like that gives you a lot more joy while you're doing it.
Yeah, and when you're looking at that too, you can look at those long-term goals too of where you want to be. Maybe that vacation that you want to take is 2 years out based on how much you can save.
Yeah.
And so it's important to start adding that up now. And even when you look at kind of long-term goals like retirement, people sometimes think that little bit doesn't add up. But if you look at really some numbers and you run numbers on retirement, the difference between starting early and letting that add up versus starting 5 or 10 years later is a huge difference. Just for example, if you're 25 years old and your employer has a 401k match and you start saving $500 a month at age 25, if there's just a 7% return on that, when you retire at 65, you'll have $1.3 million built up roughly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, wait, say those numbers again. At age 25, if you start
$500 a month.
Okay.
A 7% return, just a guess or an estimate. By the time that you reach retirement in 40 years, you'll have saved $1.3 million. But if you waited until you were 35, it's about half that much.
Just 10 years.
Just 10 years difference. The starting early and being consistent makes a huge difference. And that's true of really any way that you manage your money. If you start early and start doing a little at a time, it really adds up. Compound interest is wonderful. The market returns over a long period tend to add up. And so you can reach goals you maybe didn't think was possible just by being consistent and starting early.
And if you are over the age of 25 and you're listening, just get started.
Yeah, get started and run the numbers. Look and see, when do you want to retire? And if you need some help with a financial advisor, get with your financial advisor or a banker. But maybe it just means you have to contribute a little more to make that up. But you can still get there no matter when you're starting. Even if you're 55, just
get started. Get started. Okay, what are some practical ways, Judd, that we can identify and manage unnecessary expenses?
Yeah, if you're doing a financial review and you make that part of your monthly habit, you can really look back and categorize what those expenses are and start to say, oh, did I really need to spend that money? We went out on a family deal the other night and I ended up shopping and I spent $40 on a hat. Did that hat help me reach my goal, or did I have that in the budget and it was part of the discretion? And so you start to learn pretty quickly, does that add up, or is it something that's not that important? So that's really the best practical way, is track those expenses and review it every month and compare it once you do start budgeting of, did that line up with what you wanted to spend it on?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do something. I'm going to throw us off a little bit because, we mentioned like the small things really matter. I'm taking my phone out right now, you guys. I'm going to bring up, let's say we do, a cup of coffee every morning or a soda. I know we're big soda drinkers here in Utah. Like, let's just say $7, like we were mentioning, $7, and you do it Monday through Friday on your way in your habit. So 7 times 5 is $35. Then you're going to times that by, let's say, 4 weeks in a month. $140, you guys. That's just a month. Then let's times by, I'm using a calculator because I can't do this in my head. If you do that monthly for 1 year, you do that daily, $1,600.
Yeah.
Or $1,680 technically, but like just on coffee.
Yeah, so you start,
or soda.
You talk about starting small and practical. Maybe you just skip 1 or 2 days of the week.
There you go. That sometimes is easier, yeah.
And now you've saved a quarter of that money, but you've still got to enjoy life. And that's part of why we are really intentional with how we use it, is because you want to have long-term goals and you want to have short-term goals.
Yeah.
And if you look at it that way, there's no need to really suffer, but you can make a big difference just by cutting out a little bit.
That's so true. Like maybe you can't cut it out completely because it brings you joy. It brings you a smile, in this crazy world, but maybe just a little bit and it'll help.
Something will help.
That's nice, Judd. Okay, can you explain the 50-30-20 rule and why it's a helpful framework for budgeting? Yeah,
back to where sometimes we don't know where to start. The 50-30-20 rule says if you take your income and you look at 50% of that for what you need, so the housing, transportation to get where you want to go, insurance, things that you have to have,
50%,
food,
okay.
And earmark that for that. And then the 30%, what are some of the wants that you have? You might sometimes think those wants are need to have. Maybe it's a gym membership. Maybe it is that morning cup of coffee or the soda that you want. And then 20% towards saving extra or paying off debt. Maybe you have some debt that you want to pay off, and so initially you're going to use that 20% to pay the debt. But that's really helpful because you can start to go through your income and say, is that how I'm dividing this up, and does that get me to where I'm spending it on the things that will bring me long-term happiness. Can I retire when I want to retire?
Yeah.
So it just sets it and establishes a place where you can budget off of and really set your goals there. And sometimes you don't know, if you're making $4,000 a month, but your house payment's $2,500, then something's out of whack on how you're doing it. And you can look and adjust and say, do I need to be in a smaller place, or do I need to figure out how to get back to school and make more money? And then you can adjust long term.
That's good. I like that 50-30-20 rule. That's very helpful. And things like, recurring subscriptions, they can quietly, we're not even noticing it, right? It's just coming out automatically, quietly can drain a lot of budgets. How often should people review them, and what should we be looking for?
Yeah, I think it's great to look quarterly to see what did you spend your money on for recurring. So that can be everything from the Netflix subscription to an automatic transfer that you have set up. Are those everything that you put on autopilot? Are they really working for you still today?
Because we kind of forget about it.
We do. I share the story of a few years ago, I wanted to watch a movie and I didn't have a subscription to the service. So I signed up, I watched the movie. I continued to pay $10 a month for 3 years. It cost me $360 to watch this
for the one movie.
And I don't even think it was that good.
Dang it.
So if you're reviewing quarterly, if you're reviewing every month on those subscriptions, you can kind of go blind to them, I think.
Yeah.
But if you'll take just a few extra minutes once a quarter and you look at them and say, what's coming out automatically, and is that what I still want?
Once a quarter, I like that, just to review everything. Emergency funds. There's something that people, we know we should have, but we often don't. Why is having, let's say, a 3 to 6 month savings for emergency funds so crucial?
Yeah, I think it's the peace of mind. You just don't know what is going to happen. It was 6 years ago that everything was flowing along nicely, and then we get a pandemic and people are out of work unexpectedly. So it just gives you the peace of mind that if something comes up, or there's a health scare, or you decide I'm going to make a job change, there's a bit of money there that can help you get by for 3 to 6 months. So that exercise is really helpful because, one, you need to understand, what do you spend a month on expenses, and how much do you need to save to get by if there was some type of an emergency where you needed to put a car transmission in or something that came up. And then really use that as a goal, and one of your first goals, to save up for that. So if it comes up, it doesn't derail all your other financial goals or how you're living your life. One thing that I've noticed that's really helpful with that is I see a lot of times people will put that money as an emergency, but then there's a want come along that, this trip came up with some friends, I really want to do that. Well, what is my extra money? There goes the emergency fund.
Yeah.
I think it's really helpful to set a separate account up.
Okay.
And if you're disciplined and you can see that in your mobile app all the time, and you can go, oh, there's my emergency app, I feel so good saving for that, and I'm going to reach my 3 to 6 month goal. That's great. If you can't, go to a new bank and open it so it's harder for you to see all the time.
Just separate.
So it's a little harder to get to, set up your automatic transfers, but get that emergency fund, because it is a huge peace of mind that if something happened, you could be taken care of, whether that's a lack of income coming in or a major unexpected expense.
Well, yeah, I think about all the time, when is our furnace going to go out? Like, you just in the back of my head, and it's just everything so unexpected, right? Okay, you talked a little bit about how we can keep that on, a separate account. How do we start building that emergency fund?
Yeah. Really, as you go through and budget, make that part of the budgeting. We talked about some types of auto payments or subscription being hard because you just forget about them. This is one that you want to make it easy by having it just come out. So set it for every paycheck. So the minute your paycheck comes in, that money's going into that account without you having to think, okay, where does that go? And then you've got it in your budget and you can see that start to build. So that's the easiest way that I've seen people have success with that emergency fund, is set it, review it with your budget. If you can increase it over the long term, increase it, but at least get started with how much can I afford per check to have go in there. Yeah.
Is that something that people can do, like with their bank accounts, to where it's automatically taken out from one account every month, there's a deposit, and put in another?
Yeah, if you get paid on the 1st and the 15th of every month, you can set an automatic transfer up so that when it hits that account on the 15th, that much money is going out then.
That's so smart. And then you're not like physically and mentally thinking about it. Oh, I got to transfer this. Do I have enough? Like, it's just taken out. You kind of forget about it, like the automatic subscriptions, and then it'll just add up.
Yeah, it requires less discipline because you've made the right thing easy, and the money just goes where it's supposed to go.
That's really good, Judd. I like that one. Okay, what advice do you have for someone who wants to start that emergency fund, but we're feeling like, where am I going to get the money?
Yeah.
Like we don't have anything extra.
If you're in a spot where you feel like you don't have any extra, look to start with kind of a micro savings plan. Maybe you can't do $25 a check, but can you do $1 a week? Can you do $5 a week? And when you start to see that adds up, then you can feel like I'm gaining some traction there.
You can see the results.
Yeah, and then as you make changes in life or things come along where you pay off a bill that you don't have anymore, and now you can take that money and add to what you were doing with the micro savings. But I think that's really helpful. People can think, I don't have enough, but maybe it's just looking at what we talked about earlier, your dirty soda run every week.
Yep. Just cut it down a little bit.
Yeah, and that's where to start, is really micro saving, and then feeling good that what you're doing is helping you reach that goal. And then when there are changes, like the first of the year, some companies have a little pay bump or merit increase. How does that allow you to adjust your spending or savings so that you can get that emergency savings?
I think some people might think, for an emergency fund, I should be pulling like $50 or $100 from each check, but that may not be reality for most people. And so it's like, set aside, how about $5 a check? And then the next, little bit, when you see it's adding up, why don't you bump it to 10 or, just something. So you're having a little at a time. That's really good advice. How important is goal setting when it comes to personal finance, and how do you recommend people set those realistic financial goals?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make. We talked about budgeting, but even budgeting, if you don't set goals, what are you budgeting for? It can be so stressful that if you don't plan for your money, your money plans for you, and the stress comes on the back end because you're wondering, how do I make ends meet? How do I pay this bill? So I really love the idea of making goal setting key to everything that you do with your money. Start out with maybe even treat it like a business. For a long time at the bank, we had a slogan that we used called Best Bank for Your Business. I would talk to individuals and they would say, well, I don't have a business. But if you treat your money that you have in your family or your household accounts, your personal accounts, like a business, that's how they manage money, is to goals and goal setting and looking out, what do I need to happen in 5 or 10 years, kind of that retirement horizon, for some people well beyond the short term, and other people maybe, how do I get there quicker? But then what are those goals right now that I have to set so that I can reach my goal to go on a vacation, to pay off debt, or to have that emergency fund set up? And then once you have that, you can really feel like you're in control during that budget process of, am I going to meet those goals?
Yeah.
And then put some time frames around them so that there's a little bit of accountability in how that you manage to those. And if you do that, you'll get where you're going. But if you don't set goals, you'll never get there because you don't know where you want to end up. That's
very true with anything in life. Where are you headed if you don't know where you're going?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then there's intentions, and you have reasons of why you're doing it behind all of it. Whether it's paying off debt or saving for a home, like planning for retirement, all the things that we do. How do timelines help people stay motivated?
Yeah, I think they help us stay motivated because they really make accountability for us personally. If we just say, I want to save more, then there's no accountability. What does that even mean, right? Yeah, but if we say, I want to save $1,000 over the next 6 months, okay, now we can break that down. We can put it into goals. We can put it into timelines, and we can measure where we're at.
Yeah.
And so putting those timelines on really helps us be accountable, but also helps us measure, am I going to get there? What if there's a little setback? How do I make that back up, and do I need to make an adjustment rather than, I'd like to do this someday, I'd like to have an emergency fund someday, but you never set a goal for when you're going to fund it, when you're going to reach that goal. And so it's less likely to happen if you don't put a time frame around that.
That's so true. Do you suggest, and I guess it'd be different for every person, like weekly timelines to check in, monthly, 6 months, year?
Yeah, I like to do monthly. I think it's just your preference and how often you're managing it. I'm a banker, so this is a topic around the water cooler. We talk about money too often. But talking with a coworker, they enter their expenses every day and categorize them on the apps.
Wow, daily.
And they export it, that puts all the household stuff together, and then they look at that every week. And that really works well for them.
Yeah.
For me, it works better monthly. Our bills are set up on monthly. And so I like to look at it monthly because I can look, what did I make this month? What did I do with my expenses this month? Did I reach the goals that I set, or did I spend money somewhere that caused me that I wasn't able to save the money that I had planned? And now how am I going to make that up the next month? So I really think the time frame of when you do that just is what works best for your household and how your income comes in and your expenses.
Sure. And maybe that changes. Maybe you go to like every 6 months, and then you get a hang for it, and then you're like, I'm I'm going to do this monthly now, and can kind of just see what is best for you. And that
Yeah.
could change too. What tools or resources does Altabank offer to help people manage expenses, save more effectively? We want to be effective, right? And stay on track financially.
Yeah, so there's a few things that we've noticed that can really help people that Altabank is really focused on putting in as tools. One thing is we feel like people sometimes don't feel empowered to manage their money because they just don't know how.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of financial topics that they come up and I don't know what that means even. So we've invested in a financial education tool. Anybody, our customer or anybody that wants to learn more, you can go to altabank.com. And on the website at the top right, there's a link that says education. And then you can just register for that education course, and you can get in and there's 12 courses there on a variety of topics. But the education piece is really helpful because people can go in and learn, I don't know about budgeting. How do I get started?
Yeah.
And then you can walk through that course, and it really helps people get
That's
their
awesome.
arms around that. Yeah, it's been a great thing that we've seen used. We go out and talk in schools, middle schools, high schools, and that tool's available to kids. It's one of the things parents say they are most concerned about in their kids' education is their personal financial management. And so that's been a great thing that we've had out there. Other things that we really look at helping people is having the online and mobile tools that you can get in and you can manage your money. You can see where things are at all the time. You can monitor for fraud. You know, fraud is a big topic in the financial world, and you can watch your accounts there. You can set alerts up of if your account balance has changed so much. And so that's another way that people can kind of self-manage those. But the other thing that as a community bank, Utah-based, we've got 23 branches from Preston, Idaho to St. George, Utah. And if you're confused or don't know something, come in the branch and talk to a real person that can say, for your situation, we can set up a special savings account for that. Or maybe you've had a setback and you have a hard time qualifying for an account. We have some accounts that allow people who've had setbacks to start over with their banking. And so we really try to reduce barriers for people and provide not only products and processes that work for you managing your money, but also the people side of it, that you have a banker. You know, that used to be a thing over the holidays. We watched It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, I love that movie. I cry every time I watch it. That is such a good movie.
And that kind of takes you back, that nostalgia.
Yeah, the bank.
We watched that.
Yeah.
And this hometown banker against the big evil forces out there.
Right.
And that's really what we love, is the relationship side of banking and how can we help you do better with your money. And so beyond just the tools, I love that we have great people at the bank that are easy to access and come in and we can talk through what your financial goals are and how we can help obtain that.
Yeah, I like how you have options of online or in person, because I'm definitely an in-person. Like I'd rather have a conversation, have a meeting, talk with someone face to face. And I know there's a lot of people out there that prefer that, right? But then there's also a lot of people that would just rather be online and be able to have that access. So that's nice that there are options. So just depending on what works best for you.
Yeah, we've learned about 70% of people would prefer never to come in the bank unless it's a complicated transaction or they have a problem.
Okay.
And so that's where we see we can provide a real advantage, that there's a lot of online banks that maybe pay really high rates or have some promotional offers out there. But when there's a problem, where do you go?
Yeah.
And that's what we love, that when you want to take care of your own banking with online or mobile, that's available. But if you need help or there's a problem, there's a real person you can talk to.
That's very nice. In your state, in your city, in your
close
town.
by.
Yeah. Well, and financial education can feel so intimidating too. Why is learning even the basics such a game changer for long-term financial confidence, would you say?
Yeah, the education piece just really shifts that dynamic from maybe money's controlling you to you control your money. And everybody can learn more about financial education. There's always alternative investments, or maybe you're excellent at budgeting and maybe you're a very good investor. But even being in the financial world, I've had to spend a ton of time. What is stable coin? How does cryptocurrency work?
Because it's always changing, right?
Is that something that we should be interested in or not? Or how does that affect how my day-to-day personal finances will be? So there's always something to learn, and that will empower you to go further with your money, no matter where you're really starting from.
Yeah, and I like that you go into schools, because when I was a kid, we learned, none of this. It was like hot cross buns was on the schedule for today, and you don't know how to do your taxes now and save for, any bills. Or so I really like that you guys do that. How young would you say should we be starting to talk about like finance and saving with our kids?
We generally look to start kids at least with a savings type account. You can start them as young as you want with savings because there's limited transactions and there's a lot of protections there for them. But once they get into junior high and they're starting to have some independence, they want to have a way to pay for their lunch or pay for a movie that they go to without having to carry cash. And
it's like confidence. It's empowering for them.
And it's a great way for them to start learning how to manage the money in and out of there, with the parent being able to put controls on, because you can have that mobile app on where you can see what they're doing. You can control the card that they're spending that on.
Oh, that's cool.
And so it's a way to kind of hold their hand when they're early. So anywhere we see most frequently between those middle school, junior high years, kind of the starting point, but definitely in high school when those kids are out on their own, they're wanting independence.
Yeah.
And you really want them to be able to, if they're going to make mistakes with money, do it while you're there and can kind of help them through that. And so we see a lot of people open accounts that for those ages and sometimes even tie in the financial education pieces to when they open those up.
That's awesome. Yeah, make those mistakes while you're young.
Yes. Yes.
Until it gets too late.
Well, mom and dad can still cover rent for you.
And dig you out of something. That's so good. Okay, for listeners, Judd, who want to take control of their finances this year, because it really is so intimidating. I think a lot of us just avoid it because we're like, I don't want to know what I spend. I don't want to know that I don't have enough. You know, it's just like, it's an easy thing to avoid, right? But what's one simple step we can maybe tell them that they can take away today?
Yeah, I would say the number one place to start is just to start, because everybody is in a different place. But if the situation you just outlined is that I'm not starting because I'm afraid to find out, just track your expenses for 30 days. Just start today and categorize those expenses and add those up to say, where am I starting from? Because it's often not as bad as we make it out in our mind.
Yeah.
And when we step in and say, what's a plan? Then we can reduce some of that anxiety or the emotion around money to say, oh, I can control that. I can have more money in my account if I don't go out and spend this, or I didn't know I was spending $200 a month on subscriptions. I can get that down to $100 a month. And then you're really empowered. So the key is to start where you're at, and don't be afraid to find out where you're starting at. Maybe there is a deeper hole than you think, but if you don't start today, that hole will be deeper in a month or 2 months. So just start.
Yeah, just start. Do you notice with people that you meet with and through the bank that if they are so nervous about it, and once you have a couple meetings or, be able to explain things, that they're just so much more relaxed?
There's always option. And I think people forget that. They can say, I'm in a tough spot. I had this happen at an unexpected medical expense, something that we all dread and probably have all dealt with.
Yeah.
Of how do I deal that? I don't know what to do. There's always a plan. If there's been mistakes before and you're trying to rebuild credit, there's a credit builder program for that we can help you get your credit back on track. If you're having trouble budgeting, there's a way to look and say, I can get back on. So when you talk through that and you get the options, now you're empowered because you can do this or you can do that. And sometimes it might be really difficult at first, but over time you'll start to see that progress like we talked about. And then that's motivating because you are making some ground and you're getting closer to where you want to be. And then that stress starts to switch to something very positive that can bring you a lot of joy and happiness.
Yeah, that's so true. And if the scariness is chasing you, you turn around and face it, it can't chase you anymore.
That's right.
And just start, because like you said, there are always options. That's so good to know, Judd. Okay, anything else you want to mention to our listeners, or anything else that we didn't cover that you want to go over?
No, I think the topics we've been talked about are really relevant. It's been fun to be a banker and see the way that people manage their money. I do think one thing that people sometimes are intimidated and maybe don't talk about money that we didn't talk about was sometimes money is a team sport, right? If you're married, you're managing money together, and that can be even a harder conversation because
you got some opinions.
Now everybody's got and money's always emotional. That's something I learned early in banking is there's emotion tied to our money because it can be stressful and that can cause anxiety or fear or anger. And when we have a partner involved with that, we maybe have different goals. But just like when if we're handling individually, if we can sit down and put a cadence together and talk through what are our overall goals together, where are we doing well in our finances together, and where are we having challenges, then you can address those together. And again, just like where do you start? Well, you just start.
Yeah.
Sit down and set some ground rules that try to take the emotion out and deal with it very matter of fact and treat it like a business. Of what do we want to accomplish long term, where are we making mistakes now, and what's our strategy to deal with it going forward. And I think that can overcome not only financial stress, but maybe even problems in the relationships.
Sure. Maybe your marriage could get better in your relationship. Imagine that.
That's great.
Just fixing all problems. I love this, Judd. Okay, if we want more information, maybe we want to come in and sit down with somebody, or just go to the website. Is that the best place to go?
Yeah, Altabank.com is a great resource. You'll find that financial education tool there. You can also, it'll give you all the locations for a branch or a number to call in and get set up to come in and review that. And we're always happy to help. That's one of the things we really take pride in, is that relationship and our ability to find an account that works for you based on what your goals are.
Cool. And website, you want to say it for us?
Altabank.com.
Easy. Okay, right there. All right, Judd, this has been great. I've learned a lot. I know people listening probably have too, so appreciate all this valuable advice. We appreciate you.
It was great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Judd. And thank you for listening to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.